Where till they get a load of this? Hey everyone! For those of you who never met me before, by now I think I've met everyone in the room, I am Raymond Patrick Rosler. Most importantly, I'm the son of the man, the myth, and the legend, Raymond, and everyone goes, who? Also known as Pat. Before we get too far into this, it should absolutely be noted for the record that I wrote the majority of this while I was mowing the lawn. Now, if you ever wondered what a true testament to the man would look like, I would have to say that comes pretty close to perfect. And if we're being honest, I'd like to tie in the grief of losing a loved one with global warming. Every single place I've been in these past 4 days has offered me this micro mini 2-ounce bottle of water. And I have to think global warming is more of a thing now than ever because of our collective sadness and overabundance of plastic. Anyway, Pat, observation humor, over. Everybody gets it. You've all heard a joke like that. Moving on. Pat Rosler. Whether you knew him from the state store, from town, or from random walkthroughs of a cemetery he wasn't quite ready for yet, because he'll certainly be logging hours there now, won't you, bud? He was somebody everybody knew in some way, shape, or form. And whether the loss from this physical world feels heavier than any of us would like to accept, I can tell you in no uncertain terms that Pat Rosler is here today, ever present and listening, offering critiques from the sidelines. You know he always had a different way of doing things. Not like this was an uncommon occurrence, and I'm sure as I look out at all your faces, most of you have tried to do something, looked at them, and figured out how to redirect your course accordingly, because he did it from a place of love, and I think everybody here knows that. My dad knew how to do a lot of things and was never shy about sharing that. This is by far no overstatement, but my dad was far from perfect. As he would remind me, the last guy who was perfect ended up hanging on a cross. He never pushed me to perfection, despite the fact that I would remind him just how perfect and humble I was whenever I could. To be fair, let it out a little bit, all he ever asked of me was my best, and so here I am today, and I hope I'm doing it justice. As mentioned before, some of you knew him from church, some from the store, others neighbors, and some just because you were in need. In short, in my eyes, everyone in some way, shape, or form knew my dad. Whether it was from the liquor store, the backyard on Stanton Street, or the very town of Honesdale itself. Everybody knew the man who was and is and will forever be my father, and everything he could help you do, from phrasing a sentence to math homework and taxes to throwing a ball. This man had it all. Now, a lot of you might not know this, but my dad wanted to be a teacher. And while vocationally he might not have taken that path, everyone he met learned a lesson or two from him, especially me, especially those closest to him. Actually, one of his best friends in the world, Ed, told me last evening that he was a smart man. And my voice cracked just like Ed McDougal's voice would. And he was encyclopedic at times on a variety of topics, and it kind of explains some of our traits, doesn't it, boys? But of course, he was smart. We knew that already. He met my mother. He married my mother. Perhaps most importantly, he produced a son like me. As he would always ask me, humble too, right? The man never, and I mean never, met a sale he didn't like or take advantage of. And this was especially true when he would repeatedly, and did I mention repeatedly, rain bags of gifts on his grandkids, as well as his son and daughter-in-law. Every single time he came to town, socks, clothes, toys, shoes, everything you could possibly imagine, the man was the guardian angel of clearance sales. As I walk through clearance sections, I know I'll hear a whisper on the wind say, "Nah, too much. Nah, too much." Yeah. I mentioned his grandkids, and they were, for certain, one of the centers of his universe. Wesley, Chaz, Raymond, listen. You've always known, and I've always told you, but I want you to hear this now, in front of everyone in this room who has told me repeatedly how borderline sick and tired they were of hearing about you. Grandpa loved, adored, and was more proud of you than a grandfather ever possibly could be. Whether it was fishing, poker, eating Klondike bars, sneaking cookies, or just going for a walk in the cemetery. You were and still are and will forever be his pride and joy. Wesley, with your scouting journey or your path to your black belt, he's proud of you. Chazzy, with your musicianship and your speed cubing, he's proud of you. And Raymond, for your reading and going to the dark side. And for being such a funny testament to his name, he's proud of you. Listen for his voice when you would most likely hear it, when you're most in need of hearing it, and you will. I promise. We mentioned the grandkids, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention one half of the source of those grandkids, his daughter-in-law, Greta. Dill. Like one of those new pairs of Walmart boxer briefs that he'd rain on us, I know some of his mannerisms took a little getting used to. And he, in turn, would remind you to keep things simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. A pool doesn't have to cost that much. Wait, that was to me, and then I told you that later. Ooh, I'm surprised that didn't do it to him, but anyway. But I want you to know that the love and care that you gave him was never lost on him, certainly not on me. Whether it was his foot, his nails, any other kind of medical question, he knew he had you and your love and your care that reminded him of his very own mother. And I know I've told you several times over the past couple days, but I will, as with the boys, tell you now in front of all of these people. That man loved you like his own daughter, still loves you like his own daughter. Hell, he might have loved you at moments more than me. I know that. And that's okay. He was infinitely proud of your kindness, your wisdom, your career path, all of it. I'll get to me in a minute. Hard to believe, only child, right? But I'm going to put people in front of me for once. Mom, let's talk about you. From the story of the rabbit jumping up your arm in the bar, to being 45 now and hearing all the loving memories from everyone around us, but especially you. I know you had the greatest husband in the world and still have him right here with you. True, you two would get after each other, and I'd hear both sides. Again, lucky me, only child, I get to hear both. All right, guys, like, just talk it out. I don't know what to tell you. But I heard both sides, and I heard it regularly. But you always found love again, and I'll never forget, as time went on, it would sound more like two giddy kids when I called versus two grandparents. As the two of you grew into each other more and more, and as his love for you both softened and grew in care, he especially loved how you went from being the health food ambassador to someone who didn't mind a cheeseburger and someone who looked forward to going to breakfast at McDonald's every morning. I didn't get to go to McDonald's when I was a kid. He gets, all right. He'll always be looking out for and loving you, woman, no matter time or place. Well, I avoided it long enough. Let's talk my dad and me. For as proud as you were to call me your son and tell people all about you, I hope you know the feeling was mutual as it could have been. My father, the literal Honesdale celebrity, known by so many and loved probably by more. I would ask people, you know my dad, Pat? Pat Rosler? And they'd say, oh, Pat, of course. From there, they would not only know my dad, but share more stories and more details about my family than I believe I ever shared myself with anyone. From my first steps to our boys' progress in school, you were always ready to beam with pride at what your boys had done. My boy, me, personally. And it all started with me. That pride made me keep going, to be the man I am today, and I will never stop. None of us will, Dad. I was raised by him in kindness and gentleness, but every phone call he had, we had to warm up with something practical. How's the mower working? How's the car running? Did you use your snowblower yet? Anybody get the weather reports from that? They're fun. It was almost like he had to warm up just a little bit before we started talking real business. Greta, the boys, Mom, and it always ended with a, love you, bud. It always ended with a love you, bud. And typically a reminder of how he stood by my bedroom door and looked in, remembering when I was in there, when I was young. And as I've become a father, I've been able to understand that feeling more and more. Just know, Dad, that my heart, my mind, and my soul knows that I was always safe, always cared for. And now that you're up on high watching over us, I feel it even more. The first time I ever saw you break down, Dad, was when you lost your dad. And I certainly get that now. But you never discouraged me to be sad and to feel emotion myself. You'd always tell me, whenever something bad would happen, I wouldn't be the first person to feel or do something, and I certainly wouldn't be the last. Or you'd remind me how bad times are relative, that your hands hurt until you saw a man with no arms, Your feet hurt until you saw someone with no legs. You always had a way of making the pain of a moment feel less. And I know this morning, from afar, you're trying to help us all do the same thing. As last night, I typed these words on your computer. Every conversation, every phone call would be wrapped up with a love you, bud. And every so often, my favorite thing you'd say to me and remind me of, corny as it is, I am a son after all, so I can call it that. I call you my son because would come your call. And I would reply with, because I'm so bright, Dad. Get it? Sun and bright. I always loved that, but I hold it especially close now. I'll keep shining, Dad. I promise. Just be sure to give me a reminder every so often, wherever you are, you're right here with us. You are and forever will be this kid's, this family's grand Oompa 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 champion. That's real inside humor there. We love you so much and count ourselves among the luckiest to have you in our lives. Take a break, Dad. We'll take it from here. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Oh.
I love you, Dad.